Welcome everybody, this is How to English, Teach and Learn with Gav and Em.
It's a podcast about teaching and learning English as a foreign language.
All opinions stated are personal and references will be given when necessary. Em, are you ready? What are you doing?
Can you tell?
Are you procrastinating?
No, writing.
Why are you writing?
Because that's the theme. That's the thing we're doing today. That's the topic, Gav. We are going to talk about writing. So I thought I would start with some.
Yes, but you're supposed to prepare before the episode, not during the intro.
How often do you hear the sound of somebody writing? I'm on a nice wooden table.
That's great.
I've got a very cheap pen, but anyway, it's nice just to hear the sound of somebody scribbling down onto paper.
That doesn't happen much anymore, because these days it's typical to hear this sound.
That's right. That is right.
Which is also writing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's all writing, isn't it? Even if you don't even hear it, it's just the silent tip-tap on your mobile phone screen.
So that must mean that today, episode 14 is writing.
Yes, writing.
Which is different from episode 15, series 1.
Which was also called writing.
No, it was called How to Writing.
So how is this different?
We are going to go deep into the inky well of creativity, narrative,
We are.
exploration and storytelling, as well as all your standard send a text message to your friend and practice your English.
Love it. We're going to get that fountain pen right down into the depths of that inkwell.
That quill will be quivering and saturated with that inky blue stuff.
Yeah, that's quite a graphic image there.
Rather than us speak on this topic, first of all, Em, I thought I would introduce our guest. Now, our guest is Speak, Write, Play LLC, is a tutoring service provided by Gera and TEFL, and their tagline is, "With us, each word matters." Their website offers editing and proofreading, tutoring for kids, and ESL instruction to help you, quote, take your English to the next level. Shall we listen to Gera?
Let's get right to it, and that's right with a W.
Nice.
Hello everybody, I'm Gera, social media manager and English instructor at Speak, Write, Play. I'd like to share my writing experience with you. I am a native Spanish speaker from El Salvador, and English is my second language. I also speak French. I've been studying English for about 6 years. Everything started after I read a video game script. I cannot remember the game title, but it had great dialogue. I could easily read the script and picture where the main character visited. There was also a narrator who explained briefly how the characters behaved. The script structure got my attention. I thought, this is really cool. I was so caught up in the story. I just wanted to finish reading the whole script, and so I did. The same day, I imitated the way one of the chapters I read. I grabbed a notebook and a pen and started to write. Most of the ideas were similar. I only changed the characters' names and the setting. After that, I told myself that I wanted to write scripts for video games. Now, one of the things that has taken me some time is learning how to be more descriptive. When you write stories or anything in general, you need to be clear. You cannot assume that your reader will understand a complete idea using just a couple of words. And this is actually the purpose of writing, to communicate your ideas using text. There is no specific rule to stick to. In the beginning, I wrote simple sentences, and I had so many moments when I wanted to quit. Writing is a difficult skill to master. If you want to improve or start writing your own stories, Well, write every day. It sounds simple because it is. That's how many famous authors started. You just need to dedicate 15 minutes to writing about anything. You might have really good ideas, but if you keep them in your head, you will eventually forget them. So, write your thoughts. As time goes by, you will start seeing the difference. The ultimate goal is to find your voice. I currently write longer stories. It's more about creative writing. Well, people can guide you and teach you grammar rules, but you learn techniques and chisel what you write by actually writing. Now, I teach English learners who wish to improve their writing skills but don't know where to start. At Speak Write Play, we have a mini workshop called Next Level Writing, where I teach the basics of creative writing. I go live on our Facebook page once a month and cover different aspects, from types of stories to punctuation. Also, I write blogs about languages and create content for our social media.
I loved hearing Hera's journey and how that initial spark of something really inspired that progress to happen.
I don't think I've ever read a script for a game.
No, how do you find that?
I'm not sure. I guess there are websites there where you can find scripts. But that sounds interesting. How would that be different from other creative writing, which might be for storytelling or your more typical narrative writing?
It might be more descriptive. Describing the look of the place probably is the fundamental point, that you need to be able to visualize it so that when you play the game, it's transferred into the same kind of place, world feeling.
And I guess it has that objective, which typically games have, where you have to complete certain challenges in order to move on or something like that. But it just sounds fascinating. What an interesting topic. I think I'm going to check that out later.
Yeah, definitely. And I can see that it would be quite an addictive thing to read. You'd want to know how the story continues and how the game ends and what the next level is. It really is like a gamification of writing, I think, which is interesting.
It's absolutely fascinating. I can see where Hera said that the ideas have to be very clear. So as you're describing something, or if we think about more generally writing skills, of course, you need to be very clear in your ideas and communicate them precisely. That's why simplifying your language often works. But then sometimes if you need to explain something complicated, you then have to go up that next level and use more complex language.
Which is why I guess a rough draft is useful, and then you can see how you can make it better. The 15 minutes a day thing was excellent. I think that is really interesting to think that that first 15 minutes of writing might be terrible, but then you build on it each day and you probably will look back and see this steep improvement of how your ideas form and your creative writing improves. Like anything, the first cake you bake is not going to be the best cake you bake. The first painting you do, the first run that you do, the first song you learn on a guitar, whatever it is, the first one is never the best. It's definitely an improvement, something that you improve on and refine, and it gets better and better, and you can't do that unless you start. But I really think Hera's whole concept of this space that allows you to be creative, and there are people there to guide you and teachers to encourage you. I think this is our role as teachers, is to encourage students to actually make that first step. And it's very hard if you don't know what to write or you haven't got an idea. That's where we come in, I think, to say, right, this is your time, just try it, and then we'll work on what we've got after you've done it. But you've got to do it, haven't you? You've got to start somewhere.
You're right. Our role as teachers can be to guide the student and to help refine their ideas just from this spark that they might have at the beginning. But don't forget, it's not only teachers that can support writers, but also other writers. So if you submit your writing to an online platform, it will allow other people to comment on your work, to assess your work. and give you some, hopefully, positive feedback and constructive feedback.
Definitely. It can be a bit scary, but I think that's why we need to do that as teachers, to say, just do it, just put it on there, get it out there and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? You know, if nobody likes it, I don't think anybody's going to really tell you that. They might just ignore you, whatever, but just try that first step.
Don't give up no matter how difficult it is. We'll come back to these different suggestions of creative writing and other types of writing later, Em. But have you any experience of creative writing, Em?
Not really. I'd like to do more. I definitely would enjoy it, and I would really benefit from a creative writing class. I was a bit put off, to be honest, at school. My first story that I ever wrote, I tried to be creative, and I wrote a story about, I think it was a fairy and a special fairyland, and a small child going into this land and meeting this fairy. And I wrote something like, the little girl went up to the fairy and the fairy said, hello. And I wrote hello with a U in a dialect kind of way, because I wanted it to sound like this was a country fairy. And I got my story back, and the teacher had crossed out my hello and in a big red pen with a cross through it. And she'd written the correct spelling of hello. And I was in my, 8-year-old mind thinking, I know how to spell hello, but that wasn't the kind of hello I was going for. And it kind of just crushed any creativity I had after that. I just thought, right, I can't do that anymore. And that, I think, is a crucial lesson to learn as a teacher, how important that first story is, that you can react to it in a positive way and not just give this child back a piece of paper covered in red pen to say, no good.
That's such a shame. I can see how that would put you off. So your advice there is don't stamp on the creativity of your students, even if it goes a little way outside the box.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe just question it. Have a feedback session where you ask, why did you write this way? Or what was your idea for this thing? If you don't understand something, because usually there's a reason for it. So we need to ask that of our students.
And originality is very difficult to judge. Therefore, as tutors, maybe we need to step back, as you said, and just discuss the creative choices of our students. There isn't always just one way of doing something.
No.
So before we broaden the conversation, Em, I just want to go back to Gera and Evelyn's website. You can catch loads of fantastic tips for your writing skills. And on their YouTube channel, you can get plenty of learning tips from Evelyn on idiomatic expressions, phrases, and strategies on how to best structure your studying time to improve your English. So don't forget to check out the show notes and have a look at their YouTube site as well. Now, going a bit broader on the writing topic, Em, I have read a really good blog by Catherine Traffis, and she wrote about 4 types of writing. Now, do you know the 4 basic types of writing that our students might come across, Em?
Emails? Is that what you mean?
I was thinking more like when you go to do an exam, you might have an essay and there's different types of...
Like report, you mean? Articles?
That's exactly what I'm thinking of too, but there are others.
Reviews?
Yeah, very good. So there are many different types of writing tasks. What I'd like to do is describe one of those writing tasks to you, and you can tell me which one you think it is.
Sure.
So have you got a pen?
I have. You know I have.
I know.
I started with one at the beginning.
I heard your pen earlier. I want you to write down persuasive writing. Persuasive writing. Mm-hmm. What is persuasive writing, Em?
It's me trying to make you think something.
That's it. That was very well described. I want you to write down narrative writing. Narrative writing. Mm-hmm. And what's narrative writing?
Like Gera described, talking through a scene or describing a story.
Very nice. And descriptive writing? Descriptive writing? What's that?
I think it's more of a basic narrative writing, so it's more of a describing of, I don't actually know, Gav.
Oh, okay. We'll come back to that in a second.
Right.
And finally, exposition writing. exposition writing. Do you know what that is?
No, I have actually no idea what that is. Exposition, like exhibition, like your
No, exposition.
exposition, exposing something.
But you might have guessed that one. Right. What I'm going to do is describe this type of writing, and then you tell me which one I am describing. Here we go. The purpose of this type of writing is to tell a story, whether that story is real or imaginary. Pieces in this style will have characters, and through this style, the reader learns what happens to them. It can also contain dialogue. Now, what type of writing have I just described?
I'm quite confident that's narrative writing.
Very nice. Narrative writing. So narrative writing tells a story. It can be found in fiction, poetry, biographies, human interest stories, and anecdotes. Now, I'm going to describe the next one to you, Em. This type of writing is good for describing things, and it sets forth facts. It is probably the most common writing genre you will come across throughout your day. In this type of writing, a topic will be introduced and laid out in a logical order without reference to the author's personal opinions.
Descriptive writing, I think.
Oh,
it's exposition then.
It is. It's expository.
So this is the most common type of writing, and I've never heard of it before. Because maybe we do it so much, we don't give it a name anymore.
It simply describes things without your personal opinions.
Right. Well, I'm really curious to know what descriptive writing is then.
So an expository writing text might include textbooks, journalism, except opinion or editorial articles, business writing, technical writing, essays, and instructions.
Got it. So it's very fact-based. Interesting. Yep.
The next one is the aim of this type of writing, or argumentation, is to influence the reader to assume the author's point of view. The author will express personal opinions in the piece and arm them with evidence so that the reader will agree with them.
That's easy. That's the persuasive one.
Exactly. You're right. Persuasive writing aims to sway the reader towards the author's point of view. It is used heavily in advertising and can also be found in opinion and editorial pieces, reviews, and job applications.
Politics, I guess, too.
It's true. So finally, the aim of descriptive writing is to help the reader visualize in detail a character, event, place, or all of these things at once. The author might describe the scene in terms of all 5 senses. Descriptive writing allows the writer a great deal more artistic freedom than expository writing does.
So would you say that descriptive writing is within narrative writing? So you would have a story and then within that you would describe a character, and that would be descriptive writing.
I think you're right.
The narrative would have more of a journey of A to B or something happening, bigger plot line type thing.
I think so. So descriptive writing evokes images through rich description. You can find it in fiction, poetry, journal writing, and advertising. So I can see a crossover, which you've identified.
Makes sense, yes. Those are really good categories that we've talked about, Gav. And of course, any teacher can go into a room of students and say, today we're going to write a narrative piece, or we're going to write an email or a review or whatever you want. Have you ever gone into a class and just said, write something to your students?
No, I haven't.
No, I haven't. I always scaffold, support, or at least give some kind of framework to say this is what you need to do.
Because often they look at me and say, what? What do you want me to write? Or what do you want us to talk about?
It's like you're giving someone a blank piece of paper and saying, fill it with something amazing. And I think that is a very daunting thing for a student. And even if you say to the student, write an email, you still have to say about what, for what reason, who is it to. You still have to give a lot of help.
Well, you do have to have purpose behind any kind of communication.
I agree. I do agree. But I think in this way, I think about writing very much in this sort of structured way. Often it's in an exam book. You get an example. Look at the example. Now write something similar. I think maybe our students get a bit bored with that technique. So I've been looking online for some alternative writing tasks that perhaps may inspire your students a bit more and get some good results.
I need this, Em, for my students. Please teach us.
I went down a rabbit hole. The rabbit hole started with Aristotle in the 4th century. Well, actually it ended there. That was sort of the end point where I learned Aristotle talked a lot about rhetorical writing. Do you know what rhetorical writing is?
What is that, Em?
Well, there's a fantastic article on magoosh.com. Rhetorical writing is analysing how writing is put together and how it creates an effect on the reader. So this is where it gets a bit out of the box. Let's say you don't give your students a task like write a story. You give them a story that's already written and you say, make it better.
Oh, wow.
How can you do that?
Change the names of the characters.
That is one of the examples. Change the nouns, just make them different.
Okay.
So I don't know how you would do that. Maybe, you have a story about, I don't know.
It could be set in a village rather than in a town, or in the countryside rather than on the moon.
And already you're going in a totally different direction, aren't you? My thought processes are starting to fire off already just by what you said. So yes, you can change the nouns. You can change adjectives.
You could make the grass blue instead of green, or maybe the sky is red instead of blue.
Fantastic. And then you've got to answer the question, why? Why is it like that? And then you go again in another way. Your ideas are just going wild.
Em, this is kindling my creative juices.
I agree. I read this and thought, this is what I need. It gives students courage because they're not writing from nothing. They've already got something down on the paper. So they're actually using what's there and making it better. So then if you do want to do that, I think that would be fantastic. The results would be amazing. And you could give everyone the same story and see where everybody goes with it. If you had a group of 10 or whatever, you'd have 10 different stories coming out of that. The other idea I thought was quite nice is making students write the worst poem they can. So just write a bad poem, basically.
I'm not sure I could write the best poem.
But if you say to students, write the best poem, the pressure is huge, isn't it? It's like, even if you just say write a poem, the pressure is huge. If you say write a bad poem, it's like, oh, I haven't got to worry about it.
That means I'd have to know some of the rules of poetry
Why?
and then break them.
No. You don't have to know anything. You just write what you think is a bad poem. Nobody's going to judge you on it because everybody knows it's bad. And then you analyse why it's bad. And you pick out all the things that make it bad. Or maybe you use the word nice 8 times, or you only used 3 words in this sentence. I don't know. Or the grammar was wrong. So then you have...
Is it a stanza?
I don't know. Is it? Probably, yes. But we don't need to know these words. You don't need to know about poetry. But the important thing is you end up, as a group, picking apart all these poems that you know are terrible, and you have on the board or wherever you're teaching, in your teaching space, you have a list of things that make a bad poem.
Wow.
And then what do you do, Gav?
You write another bad poem.
No, just change the word bad. You write another poem.
Oh.
Not doing all the things that are on the board, doing the opposite of what's on the board.
Wow.
And it's an experiment. It's an interesting one. You would hope you would have a good poem, but that's a discussion you can have.
It sounds fabulous.
It's interesting, isn't it? I thought that was a really nice idea. So going back to Aristotle, if you then have some ideas about what you want to write, let's say you've sparked your juices to start flowing and...
Can you spark juices?
I don't know. No, you spark the kindling. Something is starting to burn and your students have ideas about what they want to write about. You could also introduce them to the ideas of ethos, logos, and pathos.
Oh, cool.
And this isn't just, write an email or write an article. This is write something. If you're talking about ethos is persuading, like you said about persuasive writing. How interesting is persuasive writing? Write something that shows you are an expert on something.
Oh, wow.
Think about what you're an expert in. Could be anything. Could be about how to file your nails, how to iron a shirt. Whatever you do well, and everybody does something well, don't they? Mm-hmm. Write about it. Mm-hmm. And then perhaps you can analyse the credibility of that writing. And look at the tone because, credibility, being professional, but not being arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
These are things you can start looking at that are quite interesting, I think.
And being quite instructive and clear with your instructions on how to do something, because that's quite difficult if you're persuading but being very clear and not being too bossy, as you suggested, or arrogant.
Yeah, well, maybe that does overlap into logos, actually, because logos is about logic and about how logical not just your writing is, but how logical your ideas are. So then you have to have backup. You have to have things that show you know what you're talking about, which would be what, Gav?
Supporting arguments. Potatoes.
No, perhaps. Depends what you're writing about.
Data and statistics.
Yeah, so then you might have to do a bit of homework to go and find stuff that supports what you're talking about.
I definitely would need to do that.
Okay. And then, of course, pathos. Pathos is the really interesting one. It's all about emotion. It's about making people engage with you emotionally. So not just what is the topic, but how do you get people to want to read it? Going back to Gera, what was it about that script, that video game script, that made him want to read on? Was it an emotional thing? Was it a logical thing? Was it an ethos, persuasive thing?
Maybe you can see yourself in the character or see yourself in the description of this situation. You think, actually, I've experienced that, or I'd like to experience that, and I wonder how I would react in that situation.
Exactly. What I'm getting from all of this is it's not just about the words, it's not about the grammar, it's not about the structure, it's about the meaning, the communication, the idea. And that is it, isn't it? It's about communicating using text. And that has to be the fundamental thing we keep in mind. It's this concept of describing, communicating and engaging.
Mm-hmm.
I think that gets lost sometimes in writing classes. I think students get frustrated because they think this has to be whatever the cookie cutter thing is for an email or an article or a report, and often they don't even know where to start. They're just so overwhelmed with all the things they've got to get right and comparing themselves to what's in the book. I think those tips on magoosh.com really help to get rid of all those fears that you have at the beginning.
Definitely. They can point you in the right direction and give you some confidence in yourself and just see what happens.
Yeah, and it's not a deep dive in, it's sort of a gradual thing that you can just start getting interested in, and you don't know where it's going to lead.
That's your 15 minutes a day. On top of that, you can start a journal. One of my students, first thing in the morning, wakes up and jots down her dreams.
That's a really nice idea. There's always something to use, there's something there, and she can focus on how well she can describe it. But there's always something in her mind, unless she didn't have a dream that night, but then she could skip it that day. But, to have actually something there ready in your brain that you just need to describe, great idea.
It could be the starting point of your creative writing that morning. You can just take over from the moment you woke up and continue writing into the rest of the story that you think of.
I love that. So your dream is just the beginning of the story.
Mm-hmm. You could also write a blog on your favourite topic. It could be an issue or a personal experience. And on the topic of creative writing, poetry, Em. Do you know haiku?
I do know haiku.
Is it a type of short poetry originally from Japan? Traditionally, haiku consists of 3 phrases that contain a kureji, or cutting wood, 17 phonetic units similar to syllables in a 5-7-5 pattern, and a kigo, or seasonal reference.
Are you asking me? Because it sounds like you know already. Yeah, I think that is it, Gav. I wouldn't have said it quite so superbly.
I'm going to send you a link to a book about haiku. Maybe you could have a quick look and choose some to read to us. Here we go. Have you received it?
Yep, got it. Okay, I'm scrolling.
So what's this book you're looking at, Em?
It's called Far Beyond the Field, Haiku by Japanese Women, translated by Makoto Ueda. Very nice, sound very rural. For example, chapped hands and no rice, I weep with a monkey's face. And the woman at high noon untiringly watches a distant fire. Like a ninja, a crow on the paddy, always alone. So they're quite melancholy, aren't they? And they're quite reduced. And it's a really nice idea to give your students the challenge of writing a haiku. They're really limited for how many words or how many lines they use. Alternatively, there's other haikus online that you can find. For example, if you want to show your students some funny ones that perhaps may be a bit easier to write, let's say, you could type in 20 funny haiku poems. And the first one I can see is, I love my pillow, my alarm clock is beeping, no, 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 no.
That's a real alternative to those deep and melancholy Japanese feminist haikus that you read. Thank you, Em. Did you memorise any others?
No, but I'm just looking. One more, maybe. I know one of you is always listening, but you're so convenient. That is a haiku to Alexa or Siri.
Oh, okay. Nice.
But yeah, they can be very modern, they can be traditional, but the good thing is the language is very descriptive and very clear. I'm just going to say the list of 7 tips that TEFL.net say for teachers to students for writing. So first one is to write yourself if you're a teacher. It's hard to teach writing if you don't write anything yourself. And the second one is explain why it's important to students to write in the sense of them having a voice that is valid and that you want them to write what they think and you want to know what they think, which I think is really worth remembering, that everybody needs to be heard and it can make an impact even if you start from something small. Number 3, build confidence.
How can you build confidence?
How, Gav? How?
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 How can you build confidence?
How?
How can you build confidence?
Put your red pen away.
I use a green pen.
I like green. Green is very neutral colour, very calming colour.
And a positive colour.
I agree. So that's a start. Start with positives. Make a list of all the things you like.
When I give feedback on writing, it's probably 2/3 positive, 1/3, let's talk about how can we improve this.
Yeah. Comment on the content more than the actual style or the grammar at the beginning.
That's it. Show that you've really understood what the person is trying to express and then look at how they've expressed it.
Yeah. So those are just a few to start with. Number 4, make contracts. I wasn't sure what this meant exactly, but I think it just means be very communicative in the classroom, write lots of things and get the students writing as well. So make I think the example is a classroom contract, but I think the point is get the students up writing on the board, because it can be quite scary for students to do that. But if you start from day one, everybody come and write something, it stops that fear of the board and the pen, and everybody's quite happy with it, I think.
Yeah, and that demonstrates the power of writing. Once it's written down, we need to observe it.
Yeah, you don't always have to be the one at the board as a teacher. You could have a student doing the writing. You could assign someone to be the secretary for the day and then rotate every lesson. I think it's a bit old-fashioned to think, the teacher has to produce everything. And of course, the students can improve their spelling, their grammar. It might take a bit longer at the beginning, but they will definitely improve.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that idea. Number 5, share writing together, which I think is an obvious one, but one that we need to remember. Don't just say, okay, thanks for writing that, everybody, see you next week. You've got to read each other's writing, put them around the room or pass them around and talk about them.
That's it.
And number 6, let students write about what they want to write about, which is, I think, a good idea if the students have ideas themselves. So maybe give them the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And if they can't think of anything, then we give them help. Definitely let them come forward with ideas. Mm-hmm. And finally, show that it is important to write in the world. Don't forget that we are still writing a lot. So show show them CVs, show them online blogs, show them comments, show them posts, show them articles, show them all these different examples of writing, because it's easy for people to say, oh, we don't need to write anymore. It's all online. Who's writing that? Online, it's all written, isn't it?
That's it. But with every video post or photo that you see online, there are tens of comments of people exchanging ideas and discussing the posts in detail. So, yeah, that writing really is important.
Definitely. I've seen threads that go on for miles. So, yeah, that is a lot of writing, and it helps to be clear even in those formats.
Yeah. So before we finish, Em, I've got one final task for you, because I feel like we've done a lot of creative analysis of writing in today's episode. So I thought I'd just give you the basic structure for a fictional narrative. Em, maybe you could tell us which story I'm describing using the 5-part story method.
Okay.
So let's begin with the hook. This is the hook of the story. Do you know what hook is?
It's that thing that catches your attention, makes you want to read more.
That's it. So the hook of this story is that it opens in a city where 2 families are involved in an ongoing feud against one another. Have you any idea what story I'm describing? Have you even got an inkling?
Keep going, Gav, I'm not sure.
The second part is the character introduction, where we meet a young man and a young woman. Have you guessed it yet?
No.
Are there a few different stories in your mind you think, Gav might be describing this story, maybe not?
Yeah.
Right, let me give you the third part of the story. This is development. Our 2 characters fall in love, ignoring their family feud. The young man kills the young woman's cousin and is banished. A number of mishaps lead to the young woman faking her own death and the young man failing to learn of her plan.
Okay, I think I know now.
Yeah? Have you got quite a good idea which one it is?
Yeah.
Okay. That's quite a good development there, isn't it? I think that's quite a compelling read. So the next part of the story is part 4. It's the turning point. So this could be adversity, conflict, loss, etc. Now, the young man arrives to find the young woman dead, this is inverted commas, and takes his own life. The young woman, upon waking, sees the young man dead and kills herself.
We could call that the twist.
That is the twist. Finally, the 5th part of our 5-part story method is resolution. Both families learn a valuable lesson about the consequences of their ongoing conflict, which is they have each lost a member of their family. Em, do you know what this story is that I'm describing?
Yes.
What is it, Em?
It's Romeo and Juliet.
Correct. Well done. And this came from bbc.co.uk bite-size guides.
That is nice. That is bite-size. And I think if you just gave your students those words on the board, what was it?
Hook, character introduction, development, turning point, and resolution.
Yeah, so just that, it's a really good stepping off point to making a good story. And you can buy these dice and stuff, can't you, and cards that if you wanted to, you could get everybody to pick a couple of cards that have animals on or some kind of props, like items, objects, or whatever that they have to incorporate into the story, just to start that idea of a narrative.
Yeah, exactly. If you analyse most stories, they have these 5 basic parts to them.
Nice. So, Gav, this brings us to the last part of the show.
Teacher,
Teacher,
teach me.
And this week it's with Angelica at English.for_teachers. And if you go to Angelica's Instagram page, you will find some brilliant posts. There are videos with advice, ideas about teaching English and improving your teaching skills. So definitely check out Angelica Rocha at English.for_teachers. And while you're there, you can take a look at the English for VIP classes, where you can sign up for personal lessons with Angelica. And you can sign up for the next speaking marathon. There is a waiting list for that, which sounds intriguing.
Sounds fantastic. Thanks, Em. So let's have a listen to Angelica's teaching tip. Here we go.
Hello, Gav and Em. How are you? Hi, everyone. My name is Angelica, and I'm an Australian TEFL bilingual teacher. I focus on English teachers who have learned English as a second language, and I help them with their English skills as well as their professional skills. It's extremely important for English teachers to keep their English level up. And not only that, it's essential that they keep practicing in an appropriate environment, not just in a casual chat, but in a full, well-developed conversation group, which is what I've created. My tip for today is about irregular plural nouns, which can be daunting. However, they can be easily taught, learned, and remembered. In order to remember them, you have to say the singular form and the plural form aloud. For example, one person, two people, one woman, two women, one cactus, two cacti, one knife, two knives. There are many others. Search, read, and use them in your vocabulary. Thank you.
I like the idea of this, Gav. Just maybe as you're making yourself a sandwich, you just talk yourself through it. One
piece of bread, two pieces of bread. One loaf, two loaves.
Exactly.
One knife, two knives. One spread of butter, two spreads. Although maybe we should just stick to one spread.
Yes, that's a good tip. Keep using it. Keep saying it. You'll remember it.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Angelica, and thank you, Gera and Evelyn at Speak Write Play. Don't forget to check out the show notes for all of the links of today's guests, and thank you to everybody who we borrowed resources from. I'm going to go and write something. How about you?
Yes.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.